Most market forecasts for 2026 argue about the same two things: growth versus inflation. This one throws that whole frame out. It comes from strategist Steve Hou, and his core claim is simple but huge. 2026 is the year geopolitics becomes the macro. For decades, the United States was the anchor of the global economy. It underwrote trade, it guaranteed security, it held the whole post-war order together. That model is now changing because the math behind it changed. America's share of global output no longer pays for that many commitments. So the U.S. is shifting from a broad, open, global posture to something narrower, a camp. Preferred supply chains, trusted partners, selective, regional security. And once you see the world that way, one question drives everything. Who's inside the camp? Who's outside? And what do you own because of it? Theme 1. The new camp system. The winners here aren't just the countries with great demographics. They're the ones with alignment, political stability, the rule of law, and real productive capacity inside the U.S.-led system. Trust is the currency. The camp needs partners who'll honor contracts, protect intellectual property, keep their politics steady, and keep supply chains secure. And it isn't only emerging markets. The camp pulls in developed economies with deep industrial muscle. Japan and Korea are the obvious winners. They sit at the heart of semiconductors, advanced manufacturing, and industrial robotics, exactly the backbone the U.S. wants on its side. But America runs into a paradox. Politically, it wants to reshore. Strategically, it needs supply chain independence. Economically, it simply doesn't have enough young, low-cost workers to rebuild the entire production base at home. That gap is the whole story. Because the U.S. can't do it all alone, allied and near-allied countries become essential. Being inside the camp turns into a genuine economic advantage. Theme 2. Defense realignment. If the first shift is economic, the second is military. The U.S. moves from one big open tent protecting everyone to smaller, more defensible regional fortresses. Hou's word for it is a modernized Monroe Doctrine. Protect the near abroad and the vital corridors, instead of stretching to cover the entire planet. And that puts one region right at the center. Latin America. It's America's home turf, and it gets treated that way. The logic is blunt. You can't have secure supply chains without stability next door. So expect the region to be pulled closer to make it safe for big capital. Over time, that pushes China's influence out of the hemisphere. And as Latin America aligns with the U.S., the script says inflation and interest rates can fall while growth rises. Foreign investment lifts capex, builds capacity, and strengthens currencies. If that virtuous cycle takes hold, the gains spread beyond just commodities into financials and consumer companies as local credit deepens and a more resilient middle class starts to spend. Theme 3. Energy, the binding constraint. Here's the problem hiding under the whole reshoring dream. You can't build a new industrial base if you can't power it. As the US, Europe, and their allies try to bring production home, they're finding their own energy systems are creaky, aging grids, years of underinvestment, dependence on sources they don't control. In 2026, energy shortages become the thing that limits industrial policy. So the money flows in a few directions at once. More energy imports from allies, a faster build-out of renewables, renewed interest in nuclear, big upgrades to the grid itself, and all the logistics and raw materials that go with it. Solar and wind lead. Simply because they scale fast, you deploy them in modules. You can't build a nuclear plant overnight, and you can't lay new gas pipelines without years of permitting. But fast power has a catch. It isn't always on. That's why storage becomes strategic. Batteries handle the peaks and stabilize the grid. And here three themes collide: reshoring, energy, and security. Because in this world, the grid itself becomes a national security asset. Theme 4. Europe, the most misunderstood region of 2026. Be honest about the ceiling: weak demographics, high energy costs, heavy regulation. Europe is not going to be the engine of the next cycle. But here's the twist. Europe's value isn't its economy, it's its composition. European stock indexes aren't really a bet on European shoppers. They're packed with global exporters that sell into capex booms happening everywhere. Take defense. European military spending has reset permanently higher, but markets already priced the easy move, and the Ukraine war may cool into a lower intensity phase. So it's less a broad trade, more about specific bottlenecks: munitions, secure electronics, aerospace parts. The bigger prize is the electrical backbone. The grid is the constraint under reshoring and under AI, and not just power plants. It's transformers, switchgear, grid automation, the high-efficiency motors. Europe owns some of the best picks and shovels on Earth here. Add factory automation and robotics. The only way high-wage economies stay competitive, and the takeaway is clear. Own Europe as a composition trade. Export-driven industry levered to global capex, not a bet on Europe's own demand. Theme 5. AI, the central battleground. If energy is the physical constraint, AI is the strategic one. Both Washington and Beijing increasingly see the race to superintelligence as decisive, and that changes how AI gets funded. China started later and got hit with chip embargoes. But the key point is that it's caught up enough to matter, and it's stepping on the gas. Once a technology is treated as strategic infrastructure, the spending doesn't wait for profits. So 2026 looks like this. Capex keeps accelerating, governments back it more directly on both sides, and the AI supply chain splits in two, one US aligned, one China aligned. And that duplication is the counterintuitive part. Two parallel systems means more total investment, not less, which is doubly bullish for the whole stack underneath: compute, power, networking, and manufacturing. Read AI broadly, too, not just chatbots, but robotics and embodied AI. 2026 could be the year humanoid robots become a serious story. The apps may underwhelm versus the spending, but that reckoning is a 2027, 2028 problem. For now, the theme is investment intensity. Which brings us to the punchline, Theme 6, the portfolio call. Notice that every theme so far points away from one place: crowded US megacap tech. That trade has become frothy and overowned, held heavily by American households and foreign investors alike. Even if the US stays strong, it's hard to keep momentum going when everyone already owns the same thing. So the cleanest way to express this outlook is to look outward. International equities and non-tech sectors actually levered to the reorganization. Hou compares the shape of it to the rotation after the year 2000. Not identical, but the same idea: leadership changes hands. If geopolitics is redrawing supply chains, if energy is the constraint, if defense goes regional, and if AI spending never lets up, then the path of least resistance is to own the global beneficiaries, not chase a narrow band of the same megacaps. And that's the elegance of the whole framework. One catalyst, many expressions. The right lens for 2026 isn't growth versus inflation. It's a world being sorted into camps, a supply chain redesign that forces capex, re-rates risk, and reshuffles the winners. You can already see it in the tape. Look at the defense and industrial names tied to this shift: Rheinmetall, Mitsubishi Heavy, Hyundai. After decades of going almost nowhere, the last few years have gone vertical. Whether that continues is the open question, but the direction of travel fits the thesis. The world is reorganizing, and the market is repricing who belongs where. That's Steve Hou's 2026 outlook in one sitting. Geopolitics as the macro. If it gave you a new way to read the year, you know what to do. There's a free group link below where we think this stuff through out loud. No hype, no signals, just honest analysis. And remember the one idea worth keeping. In 2026, the map may matter more than the model. Thanks for watching.